Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you will hear part 2 of my conversation with Kate Sonka, Executive Director of Teach Access. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Let me ask you something. Now, I know that we had talked about this already. You had talked about public universities as spaces,
Yes.
as public spaces, etc. Now, you actually also have been involved in higher education for a number of years.
That's true. That is
Um,
correct.
Obviously, I know, as both, a student, but then also, you had be. I believe that you were the assistant director of inclusion and academic technology.
That's
Is
right.
that right?
Yep. Yeah.
And this is at Michigan State University. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
And prior to that, you were at
DePaul
DePaul
University.
University.
Yeah. Which is where, so this is, I think, one of those funny, um, just like universe moments. I don't know what to call it. So there was a time when I was working on my master's degree at DePaul University in Chicago. I was working in the academic tech office or educational technology office there within the College of Education. And at that time, there were several faculty and others outside in the College of Ed and outside of the College of Ed at DePaul who were using Digication and who were introducing it in their courses. And right as I was leaving, there was some use of it for some of the teacher certification, and it has escaped me now exactly what it was. But so I was working with Digication both as a student,
Oh my
submitting
goodness.
materials and using it. I mean, this was like more than a decade ago. And then when I graduated and I was working in the ed tech office there, supporting faculty and students who are using Digication. And so I mean, at the time, I'm like, this is a great tool. I love this. And then went to MSU, Michigan State University, and there were a few people on campus using Digication. And then it wasn't something that I spent too much time with, but then it was very funny, I guess is the word, or just one of those moments. Because it was Mark Thompson, who we mentioned earlier, I think, who sent an email and just said, "Hey, you two should know each other." And I was like, this is so funny. I already know who Jeff is. I know what Digication is. I've worked with it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's been a great tool. I've really loved watching it grow too, kind of as an insider at first, but now, being a partner, of course. But um, yeah, so it's the world is funny, how these things happen.
I love these many overlapping circles that we have, and
Yes.
I think that there's, I don't know. For me, sometimes the world has a humorous way of of putting um, people with similar interests, together. It's
Yes.
almost like some invisible rules and laws and forces that said
Right?
you guys are interested in this thing, and it's almost like people were interested in music or sports or arts or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's like you find each other, right? And
Yes.
so I think that somewhat unfortunately, the accessibility circle seems it's growing, of course, but it's
Definitely.
small enough that we were able to, have all these overlaps. But that's also very fortunate because I got to see all of your good work over the years, and
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. And I love I still remember, our very first, not, I guess it's not our first meeting, but when our
Yeah.
first meeting with you being the executive director
Yes.
of Teach Access, and you're like, we know each other. And I'm like,
I
oh
mean,
my
to
God,
be
yeah.
fair, Jeff, to
Yeah.
be fair, I think we were probably in maybe one or two meetings where but it was a group of people, and there
Mhm.
were some great colleagues of mine who are still working at DePaul, wonderful
Yeah.
people who were working with you more often. So in no way did I expect that you would have remembered me specifically, but it was sort of those group meeting situations, but it was funny.
No, it's really fantastic. And I will say that, our own journey, um, I'd imagine that when you were at DePaul, which would have been,
It
in
was
what,
like
like,
2009 to
Okay.
2014.
So it's early
Yeah,
enough that whatever accessibility work that we did back then was minimal.
right.
Like we just were not aware or are. I mean,
Yeah,
look, people are sort of aware, but like you know, we just didn't have the know it all, the know how. The
right.
community wasn't really matured enough. We couldn't agree on some, on things, and there was a lot. I still remember there were a lot of sort of things like it's definitely a nice to have because by the time it
Sure.
gets to like implementing it, everyone does it differently, and then it doesn't kind of work. And the I still remember my first exposure to it was screen reader. So for people who don't know what screen reader is, right? A screen reader is usually an assistive technology that exists on your, it's a piece of software or in your operating system, on your phone, on your computer, where it tries to read out, what's on the screen for someone who might be visually impaired, right? And I still remember at the time, the only screen reader or the only like usable screen reader was JAWS,
Mhm,
and that um, I still remember that it ran on Windows and that
mhm,
Windows only, and that it's for people's general experiences that every, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, they have to restart the operating system because it actually crashes and doesn't work. But now we have to remember this is not JAWS's fault necessarily. We have to remember back, like if we push back many years ago on our computer hardware isn't there. Think
that's right.
about like speech to text technology,
That's
right?
right.
Like Siri didn't exist. We were not used
Yes,
to the current fidelity of things, right? So as
yes.
technology becomes better and better, in fact, many of the big tech companies are the one that pushed it, right?
Yeah,
Like I think Siri and maybe even Alexa created a computer generated speech experience that we can be like, I could live with it. And now
yeah,
AI actually had made it even like now it's a little bit, in fact, scary, right? But
yeah,
it was something that we really could live with. We can say, yeah, I could listen to this in general and can see that technology can really become matured. But back in the days, it was hard, which is why I think that there's like this catch up, sort
mhm,
of period. I just hope that it doesn't take too long for the catch up to happen.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Um, so speaking of the your experience with education, I
Yeah,
wanted to just say how thankful I am because of your active participation in understanding the experiences of students and teachers.
yes.
We were able to really quickly, and you helped the education create a set of guides for students and for faculty members it's a self-serve, really easy to consume, really quick, just in time, where
Mhm,
we have made the decision to include all the information now into um, the most into our most prominent real estate, in our
yeah,
digital space, which is everywhere that a student might be creating any kind of work, they will see a button on accessibility. In it will include the guide that we partnered on and created together. Thank you so much for doing that. That is just
oh my gosh.
what
I
an
need to be
unbelievable
thanking
act of
you.
kindness. Yeah.
Yeah, thanking you and your whole team for doing that because I think what it demonstrates is, I think we've said the word easy a couple times or you know, there are things about accessibility and digital accessibility that are not easy, that are very challenging. But generally speaking, there are a lot of things we can do to make our content more accessible, including students who are publishing their portfolios, including faculty who are preparing their students to publish their portfolios that really make a difference. And I also, one of the things we often say too is start somewhere. Just get started. No, you're not going to be an expert tomorrow. You may never be an expert. You may never want to be an expert, but get started, do something. And I think earlier you were mentioning as someone who hires is hiring people are looking for that. I mean, as students are putting their work out there, um, being able to demonstrate, hey, I know what accessibility is. generally speaking, and I've done a couple things to my portfolio to make it more accessible. That indicates a lot. They're thinking about inclusivity, they're thinking about the different ways they're presenting their materials, and their artifacts, and their work to the world. There are other pieces around accessibility that also include or also improve things like search engine optimization, like when we're talking about alt text. So there's a lot that adding accessibility um, is good for all of those things, right? That's sort of that other bucket of stuff. This is great. But also, more importantly, it's creating something that is accessible for people with disabilities. So, the hiring manager who may have a disability, or
Mm,
um, whoever it is that you're trying to reach with your work, you want to get it out there and you want to share it, make it accessible. And I really am so grateful to all of you at Digication for recognizing that and really building that in, because it also kind of helps student understand that it isn't a whole big extra big thing that's going to take all your time.
right.
Hey, you're getting ready to publish, here's the little checklist. I know that that's probably not what you're exactly calling it, but here are the steps to get ready to publish. Did you check this? Did you check this? Did you check this? Accessibility is one in a number of things, which also really speaks to what we're trying to do, which is really, ubiquitous is a big word, but so in trying to think in plain language here, really make it something that appears alongside everything else. It becomes a very typical thing that I expect to do when I'm about to publish my work. I'm going to check on this thing, I'm going to check on this thing. One of them is about accessibility, one of them is not, but they're all together because it's all equally important for me to do these things before I publish my work. And so, I mean, a big thank you to you all for recognizing that and being able to add that, and put that into the platform. It's phenomenal. It's great.
Well, I wanted to say that obviously accessibility itself is, like, I think we all agree, you and I agree, right, and many people agree that it just becomes part of our literacy, becomes part of everyday life, and we need to honor that. But I also wanted to say that there is, for those who are more into, like, who listeners who are teachers, who are faculty members, who are thinking, well, I teach biology, I teach whatever. Like, how does that relate to me? Aside from, I already know about I need to be able to help any of my students who might have disabilities, etc. To consume my content and communication, etc. But I also think there is some deeper pedagogical um, connections that I wanted to make here. So, for example, we have talked a bit about alt text today. Alt text is, when you put up an image somewhere, you want someone who's visually impaired, who can still be able to enjoy that, who'll be able to consume that by you being able to put up oftentimes a small and concise description or a caption that talks about what it is, right? That you've put up. Um, and interestingly, um, I had done some experiment with users in general, right? And we started talking about, well, what's good alt text, what's not, and all that. And people you can nerd out on that itself, which
For
is
sure. Yes,
actually
you can.
kind of fun and it's funny sometimes, right? But it's all in the name of like learning and gaining experience. Sometimes you just have to, right? Are you focusing on the flower in the middle of the room, or the fact that you're in a room, right? So you're trying to figure all that out.
Yep.
What's important. But that in and of itself is what I'm talking about. There is some pedagogical value to,
Mhm.
if I am trying to express myself, I put up a page in Digication, or it doesn't matter whether it's Digication. It's you're doing a
Yes.
project, you're trying to put a piece of visual media to help represent yourself or your ideas or the concept, right? Maybe it's
Yeah.
a very poetic, sort of, analogy. Maybe it's a just a busy background. We don't know yet. But when you actually make that, I find that when you actually make that alt text, when you start to write, well, what is it? It actually help you both try to figure out, well, sometimes you put up something you don't even know why, you just kind of throw it up there, almost like, putting some background image together, right? And just to set the mood, maybe that's what
Yeah.
it is. And
Yeah.
you need to acknowledge that and know that. And then there are times where you go, oh, this is really meaningful to me because I'm trying to tell a story of, I don't know, immigrants. And this
Hmm.
is actually a photo of my grandparents coming to this country or what have you. And that meaning can be so powerful. But if you didn't get to, almost in this case, highly encouraged, if slash, really like asking you like, hey, please put in a description here.
Yeah.
Now you got to think about it a little bit more. You start to make a, you know what, now that I've written that, I've even had the experience where I wrote the description for the first image and I go, I have another one that's like this, I should add to it.
Hmm.
Right, so there is a direct pedagogical sort of innovation that you can do with your students, and the nuance, like experience of having to think deeply about how you are treating your own content that you are, producing and
Yeah.
curating and creating, is a wonderful way to think more deeply about, how you reflect on your own learning and integrate with the, different
Yes.
aspects of lives. And I just think that, again, in this case, it's not like only accessibility is good for business. This is actually, accessibility is good for learning too,
Yes.
right? For the individual who's just writing up what would have been otherwise a paper, right?
I love this. I'm in agreement with you. One of the things, so when I was working at Michigan State University, and working in accessibility there, it was around supporting, this teaching piece. So thinking about what do we need to do to create inclusive and accessible classrooms, materials, and supporting faculty in doing that. And what you're talking about reminds me sometimes the conversation we would have around alt text, since we're on that topic. You know, yes, sometimes I was just throwing up an image. I don't know. It's a good image. And there was also I'm going to just put this image up and I'm going, as a instructor, I'm going to assume that when Jeff sees that image, he'll know what I intended with it. Aside from the choosing the image side and the intentionality behind what am I trying to convey, it was also, I mean, this came up a lot and it really helped inform my thinking around accessibility as well as a pedagogical move. Was okay, well, I put up this image and I assume, or my expectation is that all my students will see it on my slide deck and they'll know that that's what I mean, or that that's what they should get out of this image or graph or whatever. But as it turns out, Jeff is in my classroom and he looks at the image and he thinks about something else because of his lived experience, or where he's just whatever it is. He's having a different sort of day, and so he sees it and he thinks something.
Right.
So then what's happened is that I let an image do a lot of work, and maybe I didn't spend time describing that image in class, or maybe it's something in a reading, and you're going to get something different out of it than maybe others in the class. And maybe that's the right thing, maybe that's the wrong thing, however we want to classify it. And so when we think about alt text in this way, it helps us think about, okay, why are we choosing this image? And what we often saw kind of building off of this is, a faculty member might choose an image and start typing out the alt text. And now all of a sudden we have two paragraphs as the alt text. And it's like, well, hold on a second. If you're using this image to convey that much information, it probably means this image is very important to understanding of whatever the concept is. So let's consider how you can take that two-paragraph alt text, which is way too long, and put it into your slide deck, or put it into your discussion for the
Mhm.
class, or put it into your text, or whatever it might be, so that the image is still there, of course, but you have become a more explicit instructor to say, hey, everybody, look at this image. You might see this, this, and this in there, and here's why this is significant to what we're talking about. And so I think that is a phenomenal way that accessibility really can be sort of this feedback loop for us as instructors and educators to think, okay, if I need to spend 1 second thinking about what I'm about to share with my students, let me actually spend that 1 second thinking about, why am I doing that? Let me reflect on it. And if I'm assuming or expecting that it's going to do all this heavy lifting and I haven't been explicit with my students, chances are very good someone will miss that, because for so many reasons, right?
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
think your example is so great. And I definitely agree. It's an important piece of it.
Um, I think that it would be really useful for folks to learn about some of the resources that Teach Access has that is not necessarily going to be part of what they will see on the Digication,
Sure.
sort of interface, because TeachX is a lot more deeper set of resources than what we have included in the in on our in our product page. So um, I I'm going to give you a jump off point because I think that these are things that I've seen and I just love them so much. You have, for example, opportunities for faculty members to get involved, further involved. So meaning those ones that are saying, "Hey, this I've been exposed to it now, but I want more. I want to get some help thinking about my curriculum, thinking
Yep.
about my whole course. Can I get help?" And I know that you provide that, and I want you to talk about it. Similarly, students can get resources. um, can we talk about that, because I think that there will be people, right, whether it be people who listen to this and go, you know what, I should check this out, right? um, or that they saw our sort
Yep.
of our experience through building something in education, and they go, oh, well, what is this, can I learn more? Can you tell us a little bit more now about like what are some of the top resources that you recommend people check out?
Love that. Thank you for this question. And I do hope people come and check it out. So, um, some of the top resources that we have for faculty who are ready or would like to think about, okay, I'm ready to be teaching this. We have something called the Teach Access Curriculum Repository, and it's a free open educational resource, or OER, repository with more than 350, I think at this point, different individual curricular items that are divided into a dozen or so different discipline areas. And these are all under a Creative Commons license, so that you are free as an educator to go in there, take and adapt for your own class and your own teaching. But it's a variety of things: sample syllabi, um, slide decks, assignment prompts, discussion guide posts, etc., that you can go and take and adapt and put into your course. They've been created by other educators who have used them in their courses. And so the idea is that, hey, I'm ready to teach, or I want to look at some materials and see how I can add this to a course I'm already teaching. So that's out there, free and open. Along those lines, we have some self guided or self paced asynchronous courses, again in some discipline topics, that if you're like, I'm wanting to do this, but I'd like a little more information for myself, you can go in and learn about your discipline area and accessibility to help set you up for that. And then we have a few other programs that are more kind of hybrid, or fully synchronous virtual, of course, all of them right now, where you can be in community in a cohort with other professors from across the US, other educators who are looking to also be teaching. And so we pull from those two pieces I talked about, the repository and the self-paced courses. But we work together with faculty to work through, what is this? What is it going to look like to teach it? And a little bit set them up to become advocates. So, okay, go to your campus and tell your colleagues. Go to that conference and tell your colleagues. So that's really sort of the highlights for that. And I should note, very importantly, some of them we actually provide stipends for faculty to participate. So we provide you funding to be able to do this as well, recognizing time is important, and when we want to honor that. And same on the student side, not same as in we're providing funding for students, but right now we have some virtual offerings where students can hear directly from industry partners. They can hear directly from other faculty, accessibility experts, as well as disability nonprofit advocates. And so there are programs where someone from a company will come in and talk about, hey, here's what accessibility looks like at this company. Here's what my job looks like. Here's an interesting topic around accessibility or disability that we're going to talk about that I do in my work. And so it's really a space where students can hear directly from people who are doing this work right now, and obviously build their network. And so think about building their network with each other, their future colleagues, right, who are in school with them right now, but also the people that they'll want to connect with in companies they go work for, or in general. So the other thing is everything is free. So all of the things I've talked about, anything you find on our website is free. We don't charge for people to be able to access these things. Don't want to add that extra barrier for people to be able to get this information. So yes, we
And
have things.
how do you provide these things for free?
Mhm.
How is Teach Access funded?
Yeah, great question. So, as a nonprofit, we're funded in ways that many nonprofits are. So we do get funding, sponsorship from companies, industry. So they'll provide sponsorship for us. We also, of course, accept donations from people who are excited about our cause and are in a position to be able to give. So we have individual donors, and then we're working on different types of grants. For example, in NSF funding, we're working with some faculty, hopefully, on different ways that we can do this work in within those grants. So other types of federal grants, and then of course foundations and those sorts of things. So yes, it's a mix.
So, if any listeners here today identifies with Kate's and her team's mission um, on, you know, these ways of, she's already done so much, with with so little, and being able to provide all these resources to the world. um, and I think that we can all see it's just a really smart way by design, because you are getting faculty members and teachers to get involved, and they are the ones who's going to then, one of them may on an annual basis, come
Right.
across a couple hundred students or
That's right.
sometimes more. And imagine the kind of exponential reach that you can have. So for every dollar that you donate, for every dollar that you support this organization, it gets used so well. And this is why I love this organization so much. And I also want to say that for those who are employers, there's one resource that I've
Yes.
looked at and I love. And do you want to talk about it? The
Yeah,
toolkit?
is it the hiring toolkit, I'm guessing? Yeah, I know. I'll give a little. I know we're probably nearing time here, but when we think about the work we do, we really are thinking about, the educational approach. We're thinking about supporting faculty, curriculum design, development, etc., and students. So we aren't necessarily sort of strictly a workforce development organization, although we're part of that conversation, right? Because what we're doing is trying to close that gap we were talking about. And so recognizing that, we thought, all right, so we're working with faculty. They're excited. They're teaching hundreds of students. Students are getting excited. They're getting ready to go out and look for jobs. And how do we create a space where students can find and identify organizations that are looking for their skills? And so we've created something called the Accessibility Technology Skills Hiring Toolkit. Again, free resource, created together with educators, industry, disability groups. And the idea behind this is that if you are in any sort of hiring position, an HR manager, or just you write job descriptions, you can go here. I think right now we have around a dozen sort of what I'll call sort of generic job descriptions. Product manager, front end designer, etc. And we have several different bulleted lists, items that you can copy and paste into your own job descriptions that indicate, here's, if we're hiring a front end, entry level front end developer, here's the stuff we would love for that person to know about accessibility. Not an expert. This is not an accessibility specific role, but just we'd like them to know that the web content accessibility guidelines exist. We'd like them to know it, whatever that might be. So you can copy and paste right into your own job descriptions. And then we've also provided some sample interview questions. So recognizing sometimes the person who's written the job description, or the team that this employee might go on to, isn't necessarily who's doing the interviewing. There's a hiring manager, an interviewer, and so providing some questions to help ask, hey, do you actually know what WCAG is? Where would you go to find it? Some ways to help prepare. This is the answer we're looking for. Jeff's interviewing with me, and if he says something along these lines, that's a thumbs up. That means he knows whatever it is that I'm trying to screen for, when it comes to accessibility skills. So we continue to add to it. So this is one way people can contribute. We are always looking for more people. If they're like, hey, I often hire for this type of job, and this would be great if people had this entry level knowledge, we welcome that. We want to make sure that this resource is something that is relevant and usable. So if you're interested, let us know. We'd love to be able to bring you in and have you help and volunteer with creating that resource or building the resource out.
Um, I I love that. I think that it's just wonderful that you are thinking about all the different, different components that goes into the ecosystem, right? And all of the people that are involved, and you are so smart in trying to get them to be able to, provide the resources that can be reused over and over again,
Right.
and ultimately just powering them, making them, um, have the ability to develop all of those literacy skills. We already talked about students, we talked about the educators, now we're talking about the employers as well, right? So you're going to reach more and more of this. And for those who are, um, faculty members and careers people, you're listening to this, I'll tell you, when I saw this first hiring, toolkit, my first thought was, wow, that would be a really cool backward design hack by seeing what questions, like the industry is going to end up asking of our students, and being able to go, are we teaching these things at school, or are we setting our students up to fail because they're going to go into these meetings and they're going to ask them these questions, and they're going to be like, wait, what are we talking about, right? And so, and I'm not saying specifically like teach
Of
the test,
course. Yeah.
but you need to figure out where the world is going. And I think that
Mhm.
this is sort of, you can see the tea leaves now. Like, Kate, you've sort of laid it out, and I think people need to now go in and recognize them. Well, hey, listen, I know that we can talk
Yeah.
for a lot longer, because I feel like that we have in other occasions, but I really really appreciate you sharing your insights. I think that your passion to accessibility is infectious, and your organization is doing such amazing work. I am so proud to be able to call you a partner and a friend, and I really look forward to our continuing collaboration. And for anyone who is also interested in Kate's and her team's work, please go check out teachaccess.org. We will list a bunch of those resources that she mentioned in the show notes. But you know how a highly dynamic organization like this will constantly have new resources, etc. So following them on social media and checking out their website, looking for their news would be a good way to go. Kate also appears often at various conferences, and public events, and so look out for her. If you enjoyed listening to her today here on Digication Scholars Conversations.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you for having us. Us meaning the larger Teach Access. I know it was just me today, and my cat in the background. There is a cat here. For those who aren't watching on the video, there is a cat joining us. But yeah, thank you so much for making the space for us to partner with you. We're so thrilled about it, and yeah, happy to anyone who wants to reach out, learn more. We really encourage that.
Okay. All right. Well, take care, Kate, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye.
Bye.
Coming up next, we'll be chatting with Brittany Linus, a recent graduate of Stanford University. Here's a quick preview.
I was just perusing the homepage, and I was just like, of course, every website, every school is going to have short, concise information, all the beautiful pictures of the campus, and then in the classroom. I'm looking for the dirty stuff. I'm looking for what is going on in the maker spaces, the artist spaces. I want to know really what Stanford is all about. And that's when I discovered Stanford University's design school. And I remembered literally on the website, when you scroll down, it said, we are here to get stuff done and to get stuff done creatively.